Tuesday Spectacular. How's everybody doing? Our first Tuesday show. Guess what, David?
What?
This season it's at our fingertips.
17 days.
It's at the damn fingertips, boys and girls.
17 days until the start of the NFL season. And, let's see here. I wasn't prepared to do this right off the bat, but maybe I should. Let me see if I could find what I had. I had something prepared here, and then I didn't load it. I sent it to you, and then I didn't put it on my own page. No, just we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, and the Detroit Lions. How ironic, that we have started this podcast, and those are our two teams, going to face off on the opening kickoff night. But we got a few things to talk about before the season begins. And a couple of those things will be like our predictions. I have my own. I don't know if you have any, for yourself, but I made some graphics. But just some news and notes from this past weekend in the preseason. We've got some injuries, they're going to happen before the season begins. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the rookie wide receiver for Seattle, has injured his wrist, and so he had to have surgery, and he's going to miss a few games, I'm sure. Terry McLaurin last night injured his toe, but x-rays were negative for the Washington wide receiver. Cameron Dantzler has had himself a very interesting offseason. He started out in Minnesota. He was signed by the Washington Commanders. They cut him, and he signs with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh cut him, and now he signs with Houston. So I don't know if this guy can play or not, but he has really been all over the league this offseason. We've got quite a few quarterbacks that have been named the starters. To no surprise, I think everybody knew it was going to be Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay because they signed him. I don't think if they hadn't signed Baker Mayfield, I think if they'd have gave Kyle Trask the opportunity, then perhaps he would have been the starter. But because they signed Baker Mayfield, they didn't bring him in to ride the bench. They brought him in, to be, the starter. This is my son, Ryan. He wanted to stop in and say hi during the podcast.
How you doing, Ryan?
He thinks he's going to put on a show for people here. How was dinner? Was it good? Mm-hmm. Grandma made goulash. So
that's one of my favorite. Now I'm jealous because that's one of my favorite meals.
Yeah.
So
she's got the bacon in it with the onions and all that stuff. Yeah. Love you. Go over here and sit over here if you're going to listen what we're doing. Anyway, so there you go. We got a little check-in there by the kiddo.
What I was going to say is about
obviously
Baker.
All the first-round quarterbacks, there's a line of thinking. Are they going to sit behind a veteran? And every one of these teams has a veteran quarterback that the rookies could sit behind. Okay, you've got Case Keenum is in Houston. He could be the starter, but it looks like they're going to go ahead and go with C.J. Stroud. They've got, you got Gardner Minshew is the starter. Okay, love you. Bye. Gardner Minshew could be the starter for Indianapolis, but they're going to go ahead and ride with Anthony Richardson, which I personally think of the quarterbacks that are rookies that are going to be starting this year, I don't like that Anthony Richardson is going to get thrown to the wolves right away, especially if he's going to lose his running game, as now we know Jonathan Taylor has been given permission to seek a trade, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in a few minutes. But as we go through these starting quarterbacks, I think it would have been beneficial for him to sit for a few weeks to learn behind a seasoned professional like Minshew who knows the system. He comes over from Philadelphia with Shane Steichen, the head coach, who's the former offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. But, you know, they're going to roll him out there. And there is a school of thought that if you throw them to the wolves, they learn quicker. But you can also damage the psyche, Chris, of some of these quarterbacks. And they're never the same after they take all these shots early on because they hold the ball too long. Usually you're going to a team that does not have a good offensive line, so they're going to take some shots. Now he's got some weapons there, but are they going to be able to keep Jonathan Taylor, or is he going to end up going elsewhere? What do you think about them starting Anthony Richardson right out of the year?
This is what I'm looking at. Who else do they have? This kid is probably in training camp, obviously beating out Minshew.
Is he beating him out, or are they just giving him the keys to the car?
I don't think they're giving him the keys to the car, because why would they sign Minshew? They
signed Minshew, in free agency.
That's what I'm saying.
Ahead of the draft, possibly to be the starting quarterback.
I mean, you just said it about Baker in Tampa. He got signed by free agents, so he's going to get the nod because they paid more money for him. So basically, that's what the Colts version must have been going into this training camp, is Minshew's going to be the starter. Richardson's going to sit a year. You know what I mean? But I just seen a video of Richardson, and this is why I think he must be leading the competition, is because this dude straight right out of the pocket, jumped up about 4 feet off the ground, and threw a 60-yard dart. I mean, perfect.
And listen, there's no doubt he's a great athlete, but there's been some meddling by ownership over the last couple of years. And I'm concerned, for the Indianapolis fan base, for the Colts themselves, that they're throwing this guy in there. And maybe we'll find out, that we're wrong, that he really did beat out Minshew, but obviously this is a rebuilding team. They've had a playoff caliber team the last couple of years, and coaching decisions, injuries have stagnated the franchise.
Yeah.
I believe, and I'm of a different school of thought than some other people, that if Frank Reich hadn't been fired and they would have given Carson Wentz another season to play, he would have grown back into the Philadelphia quarterback that we saw the first couple of seasons, and they would be just fine. But now they've wasted more draft capital. They've wasted another couple of seasons. Jeff Saturday was not prepared to be even an interim head coach. And I just don't like the direction that the Colts are going. The owner talked smack to the press about running backs, and that immediately turned around into Jonathan Taylor wanting to be traded. They've kept him, and said, oh, well, we're not going to trade him, up until the point of the season now, before you begin the year, where nobody's going to pick up Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. Okay. He's going to want a top of the market contract, and they're going to have to give up the equivalent of at least a first round draft pick. Everybody's already got their stuff set. Kareem Hunt is still available. Leonard Fournette is still available out there. They haven't been getting signed. I understand that Jonathan Taylor is younger, but why in the world would someone, come out of the woodwork here and decide that they're going to spend the kind of money when the running back market is depressed right now. There are players available. There was a feeding frenzy there real quick where Dalvin Cook ended up with the Jets. And so then, Josh Jacobs hasn't even reported to camp. There is word that there's a possibility that they're going to rescind the franchise tag because Zamir White has played so well here in the preseason and just let him be a free agent. Who's going to sign him? Nobody's going to sign him for the kind of money that he wants. They're offering him $10 million if he signs the contract right now. If he doesn't sign the contract and they decide to rescind it, nobody else is going to offer him $10 million a year.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think Josh Jacobs at this point, I think what the hell's the other guy's name? Taylor. I think at this point they don't give a shit about the money. I think right now their biggest concern is get out of their teams, get out of that contract, get to a new team, play, sign a franchise tag, finish out what their contract is get paid for, and call it a day. Because they do not want to be tied long-term to the Colts or, in Jacobs' eyes, the Raiders. So I think if teams are smart right now, it can swing a trade for either of them or get them one way or another, whatever they have to do, they could possibly rent them for 1 year. And who knows, maybe they're the missing piece to that team. So there's a lot of angles. But back to Richardson, I think Richardson's just playing the better quarterback. If he can jump up that high in that affability, not saying he's going to take that team to the playoffs, but if he can play his style, move around in the pocket, make plays, this might be a good year just because the Colts are telling me right now if they're starting Richardson and they're going to trade Taylor, they're planning the pick in the top 5 next year in the next year's draft. Let's just be honest about it. That seems like the play and that seems like the motive right now, which I think something could be happening behind scenes because the owner was pretty serious and not trading him. And I read some articles where it showed that the owner was being, especially according to Taylor, if that's true, he was trying to, rattle him the stick there. But I'm thinking that, somebody behind closed doors is like, the NFL is going to investigate this. If you
I think that the whole situation at this point is they announced it publicly that they're willing to trade him because they know nobody's going to trade for him. Okay. They've appeased him. Well, we offered to trade you to somebody. Nobody offered us anything that was worth your, whatever. Because before somebody trades for him, they're going to want to include a contract. He's going to want a contract included in that. They're not going to spend a first-round draft pick to bring somebody in just to lose them at the end of the season, because they're not going to have the guy under contract after the end of this year. They're going to want to include a contract with that. And if he doesn't, he's going to know that, nobody has offered to trade for him because no contract offer is going to be coming up. He has permission to seek a trade, which means teams if they want to trade for him, will be like, okay, here's the contract we'll offer for you. We worked out compensation with the Colts. Do you want to come over here and sign this contract to come be part of our team? And he's like, I'm not taking $7 million a year. And so for me, looking at that, I'm telling you, I just don't think anybody is going to trade for him. They know it. And so they're like, oh, well, we told everybody we'd be willing to trade you. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. You're not lying. That's what it looks like to me.
It could be. So let's get through some of these comments here. Motor City, what's up? Thank you for tuning in. Brandon said he likes Richardson as a starter. Any of them Pittman Jr. is a stud, and they have online there. He's a straight baller. He's in a better option. Brandon, again, he threw a straight dime about the play I was talking about. And Ron's here tonight. He said, "What's up, gentlemen? Barely got home from work. Have my beer and tequila ready, and he's ready to talk some football." How you doing, Ron, buddy? It's been a minute. Hope everything's good over there.
I'm finally getting around to tagging folks, so give me just a moment here. But, it's good to have, some of our folks that have been watching us joining us again. We're trying to build an audience here. And, if you have questions or comments, please leave some. Even if we're no longer live, we'll get around to answering them.
Oh, exactly.
We have a lot of information, that maybe you don't have. I mean, Chris watches a lot of the fan websites. I listen to a lot of the daytime sports radio shows, and I watch a lot of stuff. Pro Football Talk, the Dan Patrick Show, Colin Coward. We listen in on what's going on, and we're pretty good at deciphering between what's bull and what's for real. We have our own opinions on things, but we want to keep all of our so-called fans and viewers here informed about what's going on as we go in here to the season.
Exactly. Another thing I want to bring up, there's a lot of rumors floating up with Stephon Diggs saying he wants out of Buffalo. According to Stephon, he said that's not true. He never asked for a trade. But even though I'm kind of sold because Stephon came and confirmed it, I'm not 100% sure if I'm sold out on that situation. Because his actions don't really match his words. I mean, he disappeared at training camp for like a whole day or two or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. No one knew where he was at. And then he shows up and says everything's fine, and he just had to take care of some things. Training camp goes on. Now here we are at the end of training camp with supposedly inside sources saying that he wants out of Buffalo. But he claims that it's not true. So to me,
I think that there was a rift at one point. I haven't heard anything on anything, when it comes to that. I think that whatever they had, they put behind them. And I think that Buffalo's looking to have a really good year. They've got a much improved AFC, a much improved AFC East. And we're going to talk about, how we think these teams are going to finish at the end of the season later on here in the show.
Yeah. I think there is some rumors for you Detroit fans that one of the O'Kara brothers, I think the older brother, is getting looked at by the Giants. So it possibly could be a trade there. I'm hoping not, but time will tell.
So let's continue on here. We were talking about quarterbacks that are young and being named the starter. Bryce Young has been named the starter. They've got, Andy Dalton there who could start the season. They can let Bryce Young sit. A lot of people get overly excited in the preseason if they see a lot of good stuff from the rookie quarterbacks. You got to remember a lot of these teams are playing very vanilla defenses. I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot out of either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. I haven't watched any of the Anthony Richardson games, but I was able to catch, Carolina playing. I caught Houston playing on NFL Network, and while he led a good drive, CJ Stroud did, which was a lot better than the first week because it didn't look very good at all the first week, and I understand they're getting these guys' feet wet. They got to catch up to the speed of the game. That's one of the reasons why I would start somebody else other than these rookies to begin the year. And about 4 weeks in, if the team feels comfortable, that's when you can put them out there. You want to put them out there against an opponent that they're going to feel comfortable against. They're not going to get the shit kicked out of them, a la David Carr. That's the first one that comes to mind. I thought David Carr was a really good player for Houston, and they were able to win their very first game against the Dallas Cowboys. But all season long, he got the crap knocked out of him because they didn't have an offensive line, and that's what happens when you have, a team that's picking first in the draft, is that they're not a very good team. You have to have a decent team around you to set you up for success.
Exactly.
Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Now, we didn't realize that Cincinnati had such a decent team on offense. They just needed a quarterback to pull the trigger, for Joe Burrow. And of course, it didn't hurt that he got his man from LSU there in
exactly
Chase. So, I was watching the Monday night game last night. I was impressed with Washington. I know it's just a preseason game. Then they were playing Baltimore, but I think Sam Howell, is going to be okay. He's got some weapons around him. I like the two-headed running back game of Robinson and Gibson. If their defense can play up the snuff, they could be in the hunt for a wild card this year.
I mean, they let's not lie. Last year they were poking their nose a little bit last year. I mean, nothing really to speak of, but their nose was in there. I think there could be. I don't know. I don't want to say Washington can make the playoffs this year. I don't want to say they're going to, but I feel like there's been a big change over there with the culture. The owner's gone. I feel like this season for that whole team is kind of like a big breath of fresh air. So I feel like if there could be a Cinderella team that, shows up at the end of the year that you don't quite expect to be in the playoffs, Washington could be that team. Because
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here,
No, I'm not saying they're going to.
I think that they're a team that other teams will overlook.
Exactly.
And when they do, Washington will catch them a few times, and they'll have a decent record at the end of the year. But I don't think this upcoming season is going to be a playoff caliber year. They're playing in a division that's filled with monsters. The Giants made the playoffs last year. Dallas made the playoffs last year. Philadelphia got to the Super Bowl. And in my opinion, the Giants and Dallas got better. Their records may not represent that. Philadelphia may take a little bit of a step back because they lost so many defensive players, including Hargrave and C.J. Gardner-Johnson and I forget the linebacker they lost. But here's speaking of linebackers for Philadelphia, I was stunned. Miles Jack has decided to retire. He came over from Pittsburgh this offseason after he had over 100 tackles in Pittsburgh, played really well for Pittsburgh after I think he played his first 6 years in Jacksonville.
Yes.
And I thought that he was going to add a nice element to Philadelphia's defense, but something must have happened health-wise, I think, in the training camp for Miles Jack to decide to go ahead and hang him up there for Philadelphia. And so that surprised me this week.
I mean, a lot of things like Justin Jackson for the Lions, I didn't see him retiring. He's another guy that's kind of just called it quits. And they said, and from what I was reading, Justin Jackson was having a pretty good camp, and he had the third back locked from according to the reports. And he kind of just walked in and said he kind of just wants to walk away. He had, I guess, some other stuff going on in life that, he was making money. He just wanted to go do it full time and walk away from football. I mean, it happens. Who knows? Maybe he just didn't have the heart anymore. If you don't have the heart or the will to compete day in and day out, you're going to be miserable if you stay on the team all year.
I don't think necessarily it has to do with the heart to play the game. I think a lot of these guys are a lot more self-conscious about the way they're going to feel later in life.
Hmm.
They've made enough money that they're going to be great for the rest of their lives. There's no use in, getting yourself hurt really bad, just to make a couple more million when you've already got a few million in the bank,
It
And
could definitely
so,
be that.
and that brings us to quarterbacks that are injured, right now. Joe Burrow hasn't participated at all in training camp or any of the preseason games. He's got what they said was a strained calf. And when asked, the coach said, Zach Taylor said that they expect him to be out several weeks. Well, it's been several weeks already, and there's still no word about him getting back out onto the field, to the point where his own teammates were like, we'd be okay if he needs to sit out for a couple weeks to start the season. Well, how bad is this injury? That makes people wonder how bad it is at this point, and so
My
last year,
take,
Cincinnati started off really slow because Joe Burrow didn't play in the preseason. He had appendicitis. So now here he is. He's got a calf injury. He's got a new left tackle who I don't believe in at all. We had to chip. We had to have tight ends and running backs help Orlando Brown Jr. all year last year. I think people are going to feast on that, on their offensive line there in Cincinnati. And if he can't move around because he's got a strained, hurt calf, whatever the problem is, they could be in trouble, Chris.
they could be in trouble, but be honest with you, this is my take on the Joe Burrow situation. I'm not buying the hype about a big injury until week 1 comes along and Joe Burrow's not on that field. Now, if Joe Burrow's not on that field by week 1, and mind you, they all get Labor Day weekend off. There's no games Labor Day weekend. So that's almost about 10 days between the rest of the teams playing on Sunday. The Lions and Chiefs are the only game on Thursday.
Right.
So by week 1, if Joe Burrow's not on the field, then there's something way more than a calf strain going on.
Well, we're going to find out. We'll all find out together,
Exactly. I think the Bengals are just playing the ultimate card they can play right now. Better safe than sorry.
Sure. And that's okay. I got no problem with that. But, then they should just say, hey, he's fine. He's healthy, but we're going to sit him because, we don't want to risk him being injured. They still haven't signed him to the long-term contract yet that Herbert already got this offseason. They're in the same draft class. We know Tua's not going to get a big extension yet because of the concussion issue from last year. But I would expect Burrow, if he's healthy at all, they'll have him sewed up before the season begins with a new contract.
Oh, for sure. I think they're kind of playing a little bit of head games. Let the NFL think. Let the division think they got a chance. You know what I mean? Ron got a comment. He said, I think that Carolina starts Bryce Young. They invested a lot to get him, and there is veterans there to guide him. But it will be an ugly year for the Panthers.
Yeah.
And then he said he was very impressed with Howell last night.
Yeah. I don't think me and him are probably not the only ones that were impressed with Howell. I
didn't catch the game, but from the articles I read, recap the game, and said how impressed pretty good last night.
Yeah.
Honestly, Bryce Young, I think out of all the rookies coming in the league, and I know I wasn't really high on him there back in draft time, when we were talking draft prospects. But I would say out of them all, I think Bryce Young has a better chance to probably start this year. I mean, you might as well, if you know you still need a high draft pick, why not start the kid? The kid got to play. He does have a lot of college.
He's been named the starter. He's been named the starter. So
I'm just saying he's had a lot of playoff time over there in Alabama. He's won some national titles. He's played in big games. He might be those rookies that could go through a tough year, learn a lot, second year come and be one of those QBs.
Well, here's a problem that I have. Okay. Carolina has signed a lot of names people that we know, but there's a chance that, all the people that they signed are like on the downside of their career. You've got Adam Thielen coming from Minnesota, who couldn't get open last year. And he's got Justin Jefferson on the other side of him, and he still couldn't get open. You got DJ Chark, who's going to be playing on his third team in 3 years. Jacksonville, Detroit, now going to Carolina. Okay. Miles Sanders wasn't even offered a contract to play for Philadelphia. He lost the starting gig to Kenneth Gainwell in Philly. And so I'm just concerned that, yes, they've got some names on the team, so it looks like he's got some weapons. I don't know what they're doing with their offensive line, but if they can't protect him any better than they have in the preseason games that I've seen, they're not going to win 5 games this year.
Well, the one thing I could say is this. Thielen could have a bounce back year this year. He got a new team, new playbook. He's obviously going to be one of the receivers they're probably going to have a lot of plays for, just for his veterinary help. And let's be honest, Shark is still a great receiver. The only issues with him is his ankle situation. That's why he's not in Detroit. Detroit would have signed him for a long time deal and kept him a part of this team, because I don't believe we really wanted to get away from, let him go again, because he did have a pretty good year for us when he wasn't hurt, and especially in that stretch. The only issue why the Lions, I believe, didn't invest long-term into Shark, or not maybe long-term, but another contract, was because he had another problem with his ankle. And I think that just scared Detroit off, because we got a really young team. Well, why are we going to invest in this dude if he has another ankle injury again? You know what I'm saying? So this is maybe third time a charm. Maybe he can make it in Carolina fully healthy, and maybe, he gets a long-term deal out of it, and he can finish his career out strong, which I hope. I have no hate against Shark. I'm thankful for the season he gave the Lions last year, and really hope he does good. But teams, once you had them ankle problems and it comes back, and then you got a team like the Lions right now really trying to invest to get to the pro season and make something of this, that scares the investment off right there, because now they're like, well, we already dealt with you last year having issues. We don't want to do it again. So some just tough calls. So I think Carolina is going to have a fun year. Their own line is the biggest question. You're not wrong there, but see what happens. I mean, they made a strong push at the end of last season.
Talking about other quarterbacks that have been injured, I watched the Denver versus San Francisco preseason game. Brock Purdy's ready to go, And what is so interesting to me is, things have kind of evened out for them. They gave all these draft capital and first-round picks for Trey Lance, and he's obviously not the answer, because he's not even second on the depth chart. He's third. The last pick in the draft ends up being their starter,
That's crazy.
And everybody believes in him. He can run the offense. A lot of people think San Francisco would have won that NFC Championship game if Purdy hadn't got hurt.
I can't say I'm wrong. I can't say they're wrong, because look before he gets hurt. That's all I want to say. Go back to weeks before when Brock took over, leading up to that game. Can you really sit there and say they would have lost that game with him as starter? 100% healthy?
I don't know. I mean, it was in Philadelphia, and they were getting the best. They were getting some pressure. He got hurt because of that Philadelphia front line, but they added Hargrave to their own team, which, they're going to have rookies in there. The Georgia boys are all up front now. They're in Philadelphia. But, I just like the way that Brock Purdy looked. I watched the Green Bay game and was pretty surprised how well Jordan Love looked. if you look away for a second and look back, it almost looked like Aaron Rodgers was out there playing the game. And so I don't know how good he's going to be. We'll have to see if Green Bay has gone from one Hall of Famer to another Hall of Famer to, well, we picked this guy. He sat for 3 years. Here he comes, Let's see what he can do. I think Green Bay is not going to be as bad as people think that they were going to be when they changed quarterbacks.
I'm not sold yet.
We all know Kyler Murray, of course, is going to miss probably the first half of the season. They haven't necessarily announced it yet, but I'm pretty sure Colt McCoy is going to be the starter for Arizona on a team that just looks bad.
Yeah.
Real bad. I think they are expecting, this is like they're tanking for Caleb Williams. Yep. I don't know what they're going to do with Kyler Murray, but, he's shown at points in time that he can be a dynamic player. He's mobile, but he's coming off this injury. He obviously doesn't have great study habits as a quarterback. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been trying to put those things into his contract to make him do what they needed him to do when Kingsbury was there.
Yeah.
And so, now he's got a defensive head coach. And so, what is Gammon going to do there in Arizona? Offensively, it's going to be all on the offensive coordinator. They gave away DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm glad you bring that up. Finish what you're saying. I got something to bring up.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, I don't like the fact that they have a defensive head coach for a quarterback that needs direction. They gave away DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think they've got a lot of weapons offensively. Now, they do have Hollywood Brown. They got Zach Ertz a tight end, but he's getting old. The offensive line, they brought some people in, but they're just kids. They don't, they're not veterans, and they're not high round draft picks. And so, it just really looks like they're going to take a beating this year. And the schedule makers have done them no service whatsoever. The NFC West is playing against the NFC East and the AFC, or the NFC East and the AFC North. So they're going to see Cincinnati. They're going to see an improved Baltimore. We don't know what Cleveland's going to be. I think Pittsburgh's going to be really good. They got the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Commanders, who we, just bragged on, looking pretty good. The Giants, and then in their own division, Arizona's looking at playing Seattle twice, San Francisco twice, and the Rams, while they had a bad year last year, they are not that bad a team with Matt Stafford at quarterback and Aaron Donald at defensive tackle.
Now, here's my thing. I don't know if you guys watched. I don't know how many of you guys watched the Johnny Manziel documentary, but I want to bring something up here. And I still think Carolina is still going to be a bad team this year just because of the people they lost, losing Hopkins, and all that. But here's my thing. Can this head coach get Kyle Murray playing elite football by the time he returns and being a different quarterback? Because if you watch that documentary, Kingsbury was a coach, the QB coach, if I'm not mistaken, or the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M when Johnny Manziel was there. And Johnny Manziel was getting away with
he was at Texas Tech.
Oh, was he at Texas Tech?
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury was at Texas Tech.
But when Johnny Manziel was in the league, he was with Texas A&M. Because he was in the documentary, and Johnny Manziel was getting away with a lot of partying shit.
Right.
So
is that Kyler Murray? Is he partying too?
I don't think he's partying, but I think he's playing too much damn Call of Duty on live stream during the NFL season. So that's what I'm saying. If he was a coach with Johnny Manziel, running around playing Johnny football in Texas A&M, making all this money and getting away with it at the same time, and he was cool with it then. How was he with behind the scenes with Kyler Murray? Is he the reason why they end up having to put that in his contract? Because this kid just thought he had free range of everything because maybe the head coach wasn't doing his job.
Well, you would have to think that would be a wake-up call. I'm going to take care of business, and it just didn't seem like that's what happened.
Well, no, because when you give a star quarterback, because me and my cousin were just talking about this, because I got an older cousin that, at one time he had a full ride to Arkansas University, the Razorbacks for linebacker. Stuff happened, but he knew a lot of friends. He's from Lapeer, so you had Jake Long make it out of Lapeer to Miami, to Michigan, the Miami Dolphins, first pick overall. He knew him personally. You know what I mean? So he's known people in these schools, and he's went to, see some people that played, and he was telling me, he's like, you ever see the stuff behind scenes at colleges? Like, it's crazy. These kids get away with everything. A lot of things that you would never think that happens. So, you know what I mean? So Kyler Murray in college was obviously a stud. So who knows how much stuff he got away with in college. And then, you know what I mean? If Kingsbury's trying to be the same kind of coach in college and not being, real up on his QB about making the right decisions 24/7, and he has all this wiggle room in his first couple of years, you eventually get used to that and you think you're above everybody. And of course, you're going to get a wake-up call and overlook it. It's happened to a lot. It's happened to a lot of players before. Yeah. I mean, look at how much star players have came in here and pissed their career away because they never changed.
Listen, that's definitely a theory. We're never probably going to ever find out, but we'll just have to see how he reacts. I'm under the impression that based on the fact he's coming off an injury, if the team isn't doing well at all, they're not going to want to have him come in and change the dynamic of the team to where they start winning, because they've got Houston's number one pick and their own number one pick, and they'll just, reshape the entire team. It won't be the first time they've had a coach only last 1 year and they kick him to the curb, or that they've decided to do something with the quarterback. There's going to be teams out there that think they can fix Kyler Murray. And because he didn't play this last year, if they don't have him play at all, because we want him to be completely healthy, going into the next year, that'll be the excuse. Then they draft Caleb Williams, and then, because he'll be on a rookie contract, they could technically afford both of them, but they'll be looking to trade Kyler elsewhere. And there'll be a few teams that'll be interested just because, he's been a starter, he's shown some dynamic playing ability, and it'll be some offensive coach somewhere that's like, I can fix him. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Here's an example. Here's something that's just pie in the sky. Tua Tagovailoa gets hurt this year. Miami needs a quarterback, but they can't draft in a high position. They trade for Kyler Murray. Okay. But because Mike McDonald has seen him play for Arizona when he was with San Francisco. Okay. And he'll have the receivers there. They got a good offensive line. That would be a tailor-made situation. So remember, I said that if Arizona goes in the toilet this year and Murray is up for trade.
You got that right. Ron got some comments I'm about to get to real quick. He said Burrow will be getting paid at least $55 million per year. I don't think he's wrong. I think Indy has to start Robinson just because they need to see what they have before next year's draft. I mean, he does have a good point there. But I think Richardson's probably, in their eyes, their long-term deal as well. And they're going to at least give him a couple of years. He said he also needs another year out of Purdy before I jump on the bandwagon. And with that being said, with that being said, they have a good team around them. He also just said, I'm aware of Jordan Love. He knows what coaches want and has been just sitting there learning. And that being said, I will say be on the lookout for Atlanta Falcons.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Which the Falcons could be a very hot team. I'm waiting to see how they come out and look. Now, Jordan Love, I'm not sold on Green Bay. Do I think they're going to be absolutely dumpster? Maybe not. But here's my thing. I still think Green Bay's lost a little bit. Also, it's only preseason. I'm not sold on anything in preseason right now.
Well, let's talk about this, okay? We've discussed all the quarterbacks other than Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Jets in their final preseason game. He hasn't played in the preseason. And a lot of teams have not been playing their starters.
They
don't want them to get hurt. We saw a couple injuries over this last weekend. We talked about him early on with McLaurin and his toe. Luckily, probably going to be fine. But Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to miss a few weeks with that wrist injury. They want to protect these quarterbacks and don't throw them out there, if they're concerned that they could be injured. And so I think it'll be nice to see Rodgers play in a Jets uniform in the preseason, kind of get acclimated before they head into the regular season. But it's time to reveal, unless you got something else you want to do real quick, it's time to reveal. We're going to go division by division. I have gone through the schedules since watching the preseason games. I have a pretty good idea, I think, of how teams are going to, turn out this year. We've been talking about it all off season. And so I would like to start with your division. Let's go with the NFC North, where I know you'll be very happy to see that your Detroit Lions not only make the playoffs, but they win the division over the Minnesota Vikings the final week of the season. The Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers have mid-range years. Chicago and Green Bay both go 8-9. And we'll talk about playoff seeding as we go through here. First impression of the division here, Chris.
I think this is right on. I think Minnesota is going to be the toughest opponent in the North. I think the Packers could beat the Bears, though. But then again, like I said, it's just preseason. And like you said, a lot of starters are not playing. Like I was at the game Saturday for the Lions. Carolina beat us 25-7. I listen to Lion fans since then till now crying about it. You know how much starters played for us on defense? 5. And then some of those were second stringers, mind you. We kept the game very close all first half. They couldn't really do much against our defense. Soon as our starters and second strings left the lineup, we put our third or fourth stringers out there, and Jacksonville killed us. Half of those people are going to be on the couch watching football from Sunday. So that's why I'm not sold. I'm actually really excited to see what the Bears bring to the table, see what the Packers. I think the Packers I think the Packers could beat the Bears for third spot. I think, it's going to be a good division. I feel like it's going to be more. I don't think it's going to be an easy division game this year for anybody in that division, and that's what I like. The
North be the black and blue division.
Exactly.
Beat the crap out of each other.
That's what we were called for years. And the Bears could be very stinky good.
When it all comes down to it, same record, 8-9 there with Chicago and Green Bay. It'll just be like on a head-to-head matchup, in the division, and it'll be a situation where they're probably going to end up with the same division record. But Chicago will have another win in the NFC compared to Green Bay.
I think so too. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some videos in Justin. I've heard he's had a pretty solid I don't know if he's played in preseason. I thought somebody said he did, and he looked pretty good. I mean, in real talk, they could give a fight for second place at some point in the season. I'm not going to totally rule.
I'm not saying that can't happen. These are just preseason predictions.
No, I know that.
Got some. I went down through the line and I'm looking and I'm like, are they going to beat this team? Do I trust that they can win? Yeah. What time of year is it? Are they playing at home in December when the weather is going to be, affect both teams? And, are they going to have to run the football? They won't be able to throw, but Fields is mobile. A lot of those things went into my decision there to have Chicago just ahead of Green Bay. Let's look now.
I was just replying to Brandon, by the way.
Let's look now, okay, at the NFC South. And we've been talking about this since, free agency happened. I think Derek Carr is going to make all the difference for the New Orleans Saints because he's finally going to have himself a defense. Whereas, Carolina and Tampa are not going to be good because of their quarterback situations. They've lost, some players. Both those teams have. Carolina's got a new coach, new starting quarterback. They're rebuilding from the ground up. And the NFC South has got a really tough schedule. They're going to be playing against the NFC North, but I'll tell you, the easy part of the schedule will be, and this is where some of these teams are going to get a couple of their wins, they're playing the AFC South. Okay. And so, these could be low figures for Carolina and Tampa, but I like that Atlanta has a winning record, but I don't think they're going to challenge New Orleans for the division. I think New Orleans wins this division because of the strength of their defense. They've got so many receivers for Derek Carr to throw to. I know they're not going to have Alvin Kamara the first 3 weeks of the year, but I think that Jamal Williams will be adequate enough and that they will make plays,
Oh, for sure.
And New Orleans, I think they're going to win this division, Chris.
I got a question. By chance, did the Saints play the Broncos at all this year?
Do the Saints play the Broncos? Let's see. I don't think so. The NFC South plays. No. They play the NFC.
The NFL didn't go there. Hey guys, let's give the props to NFL. They left that storyline completely out of the equation, in which I was very surprised because I thought for some reason the Saints and Broncos for sure played this year because I was like, there's no way the NFL is going to leave the Sean Payton returns to New Orleans with the Broncos.
Well, he's got to build the team up first after the disaster they had last year.
You're probably right. They're going to let them get good before they do that to them. We got to ask, who's Sean Payton paying off to wait till he has a good team before he returns to play his whole team?
No, the schedule is set in advance on which divisions and stuff they play against.
No, I know.
Sorry, that's not going to work out, sir. Oh boy! All right. Well, listen, we're going to go now, okay? Because Brandon's watching, we're gonna hold off on the NFC East. We're going to go to the NFC West on purpose, make him stick around a little longer. And we talked about this, with Brock Purdy being there. I think that even though they lost some defensive players, they gained Hargrave and some other players on defense. San Francisco, I think, is the class of the NFC West. Seattle will be right in the thick of the playoff hunt, probably make the playoffs with that 10-7 record. The Rams, I think they're going to be much improved. I got zero faith in the Arizona Cardinals winning anything. They want that number one pick. I think that the scenarios we have talked about, and the NFC West is going to play against the NFC East. So they're going to get Dallas and Philly and the Giants and Washington. And they're playing the AFC North. So they're going to see Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, which I think a lot of us feel like, that's one of the tougher divisions, in the AFC. It's definitely not the AFC South, They're gonna see some pretty good defenses. What do you think here of the NFC West, Chris?
I think you're spot on. I'm not totally sold that Carolina won't win a game, but hey, in respect to my franchise, if this happened, if you're true on this prediction, I don't want to hear no one bring the Detroit Lions up, because that'll be ancient history. We'll have an 0-17.
You'd like to see Arizona take that 0-17.
Yes.
Get the Lions off the schneid as the worst regular season team of all time. Yeah.
But I think they squeeze maybe one or two, maybe possibly three. We'll see how the season goes there. The Rams, pretty spot on. They could push for a wild card if things play out differently. Long season. But if I had to do predictions, I would have 49ers, Seahawks 1-2. I think they're.
Yeah. When it comes to Seattle, I think they could have a little bit better record than this. But the problem that I have is that, and this has nothing to do with Jackson Smith and Jigba getting hurt, their running back room is really banged up. Kenneth Walker's been hurt here in preseason. Zach Charbonnet, the rookie, he's hurt. They're down to DJ Dallas, who has played as the starter in the past for them. They've got Kenny McIntosh on this roster, who was the starter at Georgia last year in college. So I don't know. Maybe, he comes in and does something, but he was a low-round draft pick for them. And, if it gets to that point, they may have to use him, to come in there and do something with the running game, because that's Seattle's bread and butter. They are a run-first team. They have been since Marshawn Lynch. That's what made Russell Wilson so effective, is having a good running game. And so, this could be disaster here if they don't have that running game this year.
I got a quick question though.
Sure.
Why is it just me, or is Seattle for the last 8 years always been having the same problem with running backs being hurt? It seems like they have, since they've lost Marshawn Lynch, since he's walked away from the game, it just really truly seems like every year they can't have all the running backs healthy. They're always
Rashad Penny was constantly hurt, so they shipped him off. He went to Philly. They had they've got Travis Homer. I think he left and went to either Chicago or Green Bay. They've had a lot of different players have been there at the running back position, and you're right. It just feels like none of them can stay healthy. Now, they drafted Kenneth Walker last year. He takes over the head running back position from Chris Carson or something like that. He ain't even on the team no more. Carson, he's gone.
No, he had to retire because of neck injury.
They got Walker, Chardonnay, and then then they're down to DJ Dallas, and then Kenny McIntosh could surprise, from the fourth spot, because he was the starter at Georgia last year. And Georgia running backs always seem to be, ever since Herschel Walker, he was the big name back then at Georgia. All the other Georgia running backs are overlooked. They're drafted low, and then you end up with Terrell Davis. You end up with a Robert Edwards, who unfortunately got injured on that, playing in that sand flag football game. He was doing great, for New England years ago. But, you've had Sony Michel played well for several years. I believe, is Nick Chubb from Georgia? And
Yeah, he
so,
actually is from Georgia.
you've got players that are drafted, lower down, and they end up becoming great running backs in the NFL. And so I would keep my eye on Kenny McIntosh. He's got a strained knee right now. The only healthy running back they got is DJ Dallas in Seattle. That could be trouble for them. Let's talk NFC East. Brandon's been waiting long enough. Make a trade with Indianapolis, Ron says, to get Jonathan Taylor.
I don't
think so. It'll cost them too much money, too many draft picks. You're
right on that.
They've got two really great caliber running backs, that are on the roster. They're just injured right now. Now, if they were getting ready to go into the playoffs, and they had to have a running back, I could see them doing something, but not right now. All right, NFC East, where we rip out Brandon Bigland's heart. I'm sorry, sir, but you just got too tough a schedule. The NFC East plays the NFC West and the AFC East this year, along with their own division. Washington, we think, is going to be improved. The reason that I have Dallas ahead of Philadelphia is a head-to-head matchup near the end of the season. I just don't think that Philadelphia is going to be as good as they were last year defensively with the losses that they have taken here in the offseason. And I think that there are just too many good teams in the NFC this year to allow the Giants to make the playoffs. They could be a better team, not necessarily have a better record. And I
got a lot of ties going on in this division.
Do what now?
So you got a lot of ties in this division here. But in your defense, this is the NFC East. And I swear to God, this division is the most wildest one when it comes to records at the end of the year.
There's like a new division champion every year.
This division,
every year there's a new division champion.
I hate
Eagles
to say
were the champs last year.
I hate
the Cowboys were the champs the year before that.
I hate to say
Didn't Washington win the division and they had a losing record? And Taylor Heineke almost beat Tampa the year Tampa won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady.
You ain't lying.
I'm sorry, I'm killing them. Oh my God!
Hey, this division of any division in football, this division could have its own soap opera, live TV show every week, and it'll be one of the highest rated ones on TV. Tell me I'm wrong.
Hey, the only thing you're missing is T.O. doing his sit-ups in the driveway, to go with your soap opera situation. You're going to get your soap opera with Jerry Jones.
For sure.
And then this offseason, we had the Daniel Jones gets Patrick Mahomes money, Patrick Mahomes is on now the 7th highest paid quarterback. Oh, my God. Daniel Jones got $40 million. And then Saquon was going to hold out. Then he's like, I just better sign the contract and get my money before they rescind the deal because they may find somebody better than me. That's the way
I think it's real bad. I think he just – I think Barkley just took advice.
Franchise tag taken away.
I just think Barkley took advice because I've seen like an interview. Someone asked Latavius Bell, and he said he was reaching out to a lot of these guys, holding out supposedly, and he was telling them like, "Don't do it. Look what happened to me," kind of thing. So right. I think Barkley just honestly became smart and realized like, well, if I really do sit out, this kind of gives me a black mark to other teams, and it's not really going to get me paid by anybody else either if I don't play this year.
Brandon, so, I believe that it's possible because of the head coach, Brian Daboll. He took a kid who played at the University of Wyoming, who's a run-first quarterback, and turned him into the Josh Allen we know now.
Mhm.
Danny Dimes has had trouble. He was, kind of had to run around a lot. He's running for his life because they didn't have an offensive line. But now that they do, he's got a running game now that Barkley has come back in the fold. They're trying to get him some weapons. They got a lot of name wide receivers, but it just feels like they're all 2 and 3s. They don't really have any ones. So we'll have to see if Jalen Hyatt, I think that's their first pick, or their wide receiver they brought in this year. They'll have to see if maybe he's their one. They gave away Odell Beckham Jr.,
I'm sorry, Wyatt is a beast.
Yeah.
Him, Tennessee, man. I could go back and watch that Alabama game all over last year. That dude seemed like he was in the touchdown every time I blinked.
But I believe in head coach Brian Daboll, and I think that if he's working close with his quarterback, which I expect he is, that he can continue to improve, and that $40 million will seem like a bargain. Just like the money when they gave it to Mahomes. What are you going to do with the salary cap? You mean the salary cap that goes up every year?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got good drafting, which, we'll just have to wait and see, you could operate with a franchise quarterback with a big tag number. All right, we're going to move on now to the AFC, and we're going to begin with the AFC North. And this is all contingent on a healthy Joe Burrow. I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be really good this year because they're going to have an improved offense when it comes to throwing the ball down the field. I think the Steelers are going to be good as well, and they're going to beat each other up in this division. Cleveland's got a running game and they have a little bit of defense, but I just think that Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, he just took the money. I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that works hard to get back where he was when he was in Houston. And the AFC North is facing a monster schedule. They're going to play against the NFC West, and they're also going to play against the AFC South, but I ain't got much to say about that. But, when they play against each other, and they're, Cincinnati's going to play against Kansas City. They're going to have Kansas City. They're going to be playing against, I think they play Philadelphia also. Cincinnati goes to Jacksonville. That'll be interesting. But overall for this division, I just think that the top 3 are head and shoulders above Cleveland. And this will be Kevin Stefanski's last year as head coach there. He's one of the coaches I think is going to be on the hot seat, and he's going to be out of there because, they can't win games. They just got too tough a schedule. I don't think they've got the weapons to deal with it. What do you think, Chris?
I expect the Browns to be a tad bit better. But then again, I got that all comes down to Deshaun Watson, where he's at. So I'm still on the same page. I see a tough division. I do see the Bengals still winning this division. And I can possibly see the Steelers because, again, I will say it again, everybody, I ain't sold on Jackson as a QB. He would have to stay healthy to get that second seed, I believe, in that division. That's just my opinion.
All right, let's move on. Our next division is going to be the lowly and worst division in football, the AFC South. Let's get it out of the way now while we can. And, so I really think that Jacksonville is going to feast on this division this year. They'll probably go undefeated. That's 6 games alone right there. Now, they've got tough games against Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, They're going to be playing some of the cream of the crop in the NFL, and they're gonna go about 500 against them. They'll go 6-5 out of division, and but they're going to feast in division and they're going to win it. They already made it to the playoffs last year, okay, and they did that with technically they didn't have a number one receiver. Now they had Christian Kirk, but he's a number two. Now they got Calvin Ridley, okay, and the running back position has been kind of so-so. Travis Etienne could be a star. They drafted this kid, Tank Bigsby. I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch in Jacksonville on the. It's going to be kind of like Philadelphia used to be when Doug Peterson was there. They're going to run the football, at people, and they're going to road grade them, and then Trevor Lawrence is going to play action teams to death.
Yeah. I agree with you there, buddy. I agree with you. I think Jacksonville runs away with this division, and the rest of the division, they're just going to work themselves out and see what draft picks they get. I don't have faith in Tennessee really. They could be better in 5-12, but they're going to have to show me. They're going to have to show way more than they showed last year. Houston and Colts for sure in the bottom of that division. But Jacksonville still wins that division. I don't think there's a way they can lose.
Okay, so now we get to the fun. The fun is we're going to go to the AFC West.
Where the Broncos win the division.
No, there's no way I'm picking the Broncos.
The Raiders.
I've done something. Something has happened. It's not working. Hang on.
Look at that. Even his own computer hates KC fans.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, obviously, you got the Kansas City Chiefs winning the division. I think that Denver is going to clearly be better. The Raiders will be better than they were last year. The Chargers are going to take a little bit of a step back because they're in a new offense, and you still don't know what you're going to get out of them defensively. They've got all these names on defense, but they never show up. And it's like, the Chargers start the season well, and I watched Pardon the Interruption with Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser. After about halfway through the season, the Chargers take a little nappy, and whatever you thought you saw at the beginning of the year is not the same team at the end. I think that it would have been in the Spanos' best interest to fire Staley as the coach, because they could have had Sean Payton with the Chargers. And he wanted to get back into coaching, after taking a year off. And he ended up settling for Denver because it was the lesser of two evils between Denver and Indianapolis, because he knew what he'd be getting into with Irsay, and there was no quarterback there. And so, I just think that they're going to come to regret that. I think that the Chiefs will continue to hold serve in the division. They are going to lose some games. They're going to play against I think that the biggest upset of the year will be Philadelphia going into Kansas City and winning the game in Kansas City. Philadelphia is going to beat them. Buffalo's going to get them. Cincinnati's going to get them. Maybe Jacksonville, will get them. We'll have to wait and see. But I just think that the best of the best are going to play Kansas City, and they're going to have a rough time this year against some of the best teams, a la what happened to them a couple of years ago, And so, that's what my feeling on the division. What do you think, Chris?
I think I can't deny it. I think this is how it's going to play out. I think the Chargers could be a little bit better, but we have to see at this point. I don't think that's a bad prediction, though, until we see the product on the field later in the year.
Final division, and then we'll get to playoff seedings. And the final division is probably going to surprise a few people because of, the hype that we've been having this year, towards, some of these teams. And, I think some people will be surprised. I got the Jets going 10-7, and I got Buffalo winning the division at 13-4. Miami, will be improved this year. The Jets are definitely going to be improved with that 10-7 record, but it depends on, a win here, a loss there that may keep them out of the playoff picture in the AFC. New England will not be horrible, but only because they're playing against a bunch of horrible teams will they get that 7 wins. Their defense will travel. Bill Belichick will plan some things to beat up on some rookie quarterbacks, and they'll catch a couple of the better teams sleeping. But for the most part, this is kind of where we begin in our seeding, because right now, you got 3 teams with double-digit wins. How many teams in the AFC with double digits can make the playoffs? There's only 7 playoff spots. And so talk about this division real quick, Chris, and then we'll get to the playoff scenario in the AFC.
I think you're right on, but I will say this. I think Miami does have a true chance at winning this division. I think Miami could be the better team in the East. But the Buffalo Bills could still be that team too. We're just going to have to really see.
Buffalo was embarrassed at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. They've done a few things. That's why there was some rift between Stephon Diggs. He really felt like he should have got more targets, that he was open in that game, that they should have won that game. And instead they let Cincinnati punk them at home, and make it to the AFC title game. And I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, even worse than they did. It's kind of the story of the Buffalo Bills, year in, year out. When they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, well, this year they're going to do it. This year they're going to do it, and it was always something that stood in their way. It's been Kansas City. Now Cincinnati's in their way. I think that, being in a loaded AFC, they're going to be in their second year under the new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Brian Daboll left and went to the Giants. So I think that may have, led to a little bit of a step back last year. But now they'll be in their second year under him. McDermott, the head coach, is taking over the defense because Leslie Frazier wanted to take a year off. The head coach is going to be right on top of the defense the whole time. I think that means that the defense will be better. I think their offense will improve on the running game this year. I got the Buffalo Bills as the number 1 seed in the AFC, Chris.
Whoa. Over your Chiefs?
Yeah. Hang on a minute. I got to find my graphic.
All right. Do I need to call the doctor?
AFC. Here we go. And this is going to be all of the divisions look again. And you'll see the seedings this time in the AFC. I got the Buffalo Bills with the number 1 seed. Kansas City comes in at 2. Jacksonville at 3 and Cincinnati at 4 because of such a tough division. Baltimore 5, Steelers at 6, and the Miami Dolphins are the 7th team. The Jets just missed the playoffs. And because of that, that brings us to our matchups and what I think is going to happen this year. Let me get out of this. our seedings and our matchups here is this one. This is the AFC going all the way from the beginning. I've got the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals in the opening round of the playoffs to advance to play number 1 seed Buffalo. Kansas City, the 2 seed, will knock off Miami, who didn't get to play in Kansas City this season. They had to go to Germany, which kind of irked Tyreek Hill a little bit because he was expecting to go to Kansas City. Well, you're going to get the chance, Tyreek, because it's going to happen in the playoffs in January. Kansas City will advance. Jacksonville will knock off Pittsburgh. And we'll have Baltimore and Buffalo and Jacksonville and Kansas City in the divisional playoff round. Kansas City will go into Buffalo in order to be able to win and go on to their, their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years, with a chance to win their 3rd Super Bowl title.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you think, bud? I'm just looking at what I've got.
I mean, as a fan, I hope not. But in reality, it could be very damn possible.
Let's see if I can find this other one here. Okay, there it is. All right, now we're going to go from the AFC to the NFC, the seedings.
NFC, ooh. My Lions ranked number 1, right?
Hang on, I'm on the wrong thing. I was going to show the divisions first.
Lions got ranked number 1, right? Home field advantage.
The number 1 seed? No, you're crazy. So anyway, we go to the NFC, and the NFC seedings. You get a chance to look at all the divisions now. And I've got San Francisco with the number 1 seed. You move on to Dallas with the 2. Detroit gets the 3 seed, and New Orleans with the 4 seed. And, then you've got the 5 seed there with the Philadelphia Eagles. 6 is the Vikings. 7 is the Seattle Seahawks. And so that'll bring us to the matchups and the grid for the NFC, which I got to click about 100 times to get to. There we go. Everything's working. My computer hasn't died while I'm going through all these pictures. In the NFC, we start out with, you've got the Detroit Lions are going to beat the Minnesota Vikings in the opening round of the playoffs. Dallas will knock off Seattle, and Philadelphia will beat New Orleans. And so Philadelphia is going to go on to see San Francisco. San Francisco gets their revenge for last year's NFC Championship game. Dallas will slip by Detroit, probably in overtime. That'll make you feel good.
No.
And Dallas versus San Francisco for the 3rd year in a row in the playoffs, that San Francisco knocks off Dallas, who finally gets to an NFC Championship game just to be turned away. And we get the 49ers versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for the 2nd time in the last 5 years. What do you think, brother?
It could be very possible, but I'm hoping for a whole different outcome.
Oh, well, I mean, the Detroit Lions should win the Super Bowl this year, and they'll beat the Houston Texans.
Hey, no. No one said the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl.
Oh,
but I'm just saying I'm hoping for a whole different outcome.
To the Super Bowl. Okay, if Detroit makes it to the Super Bowl, if they're not playing Kansas City, I'll absolutely be rooting for you. What would really suck in the eyes of some fans would be as if they got there and they were playing against like Buffalo, who ain't never won the Super Bowl either. That would be a great matchup but I'd feel really bad for the loser of that game. I'd like to see two teams that have never won the Super Bowl face each other.
That would be awesome.
But that would be really tough, to pick who would.
But hey,
I would want to win that game.
But I'm always. This is my look at it. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that starts.
Woo! You tell him, Ric Flair.
And that starts September.
That is on September the 7th. 17 days away, Thursday. And
the Lions.
Let me see if I can make this happen for myself, because I've been holding off because I didn't want to lose my computer trying to do too many things. Let's see if I can get this graphic to pull up, because I got to save it to the computer before I can do it. Okay, I wanted to do this earlier and I screwed it up by not doing it. I didn't save it to my main computer. I've only got it on my phone right now. Come on. We can, just about end our deal here. Come on. There you go. All right, do it for me now. Not what I want to do. I want to do this. No, that's not what I want to do. Come on. There we go. No! It's going to work. It's not going to work. It's going to screw everything up. Reload. Come on. The last 5 minutes of the show is a cluster.
It's okay.
I want to thank everybody who has joined us tonight. I like doing these. They're fun doing these. We don't always get a chance to do them as often as people maybe want us to, but it's been a fun time. And I want to, oh, here we go. It's going to work now. Come on.
Our season's kicking off, baby.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up soon. It's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to every week. So,
well, and I mean, we haven't talked about it yet, but we will. The gambling aspect of the game, and because I'm on draft. I like DraftKings the best. FanDuel is okay. I dabble a little bit in the Caesars and the Barstool, but for the most part, when it comes to the deals that they offer you, like the load bonuses, if you put $50 in, they'll match it, stuff like that, where you get extra money to gamble with. You can't withdraw it till you use it, but you get those extra chances to gamble on things. I really love doing that. And so, here is, the thing that I wanted to throw up there. NFL kickoff game, Thursday, September the 7th, the Detroit Lions, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be a fun time. They're going to show the game on NBC. And, I just think that it's going to be a lot of fun. And so, I look forward to that. I know you're looking forward to it. Our two teams kind of beat each other up.
I'm looking forward to it. But
there's if you can hear it, there's your Thursday/Sunday night football theme music.
I can't hear it.
That's all right. I tried.
You tried.
Hey,
that's all that matters.
For Sarah Jr. and David Llewellyn, this has been the 4th and Goal podcast. Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see
you. We'll try to do it again next Tuesday, brother.
Sounds good. But as soon as the season starts, we will be here every Tuesday.
Definitely. Every Tuesday.
So
we'll
tune in.
Yeah. Review
also
the games, the Monday game, and then we'll predict what we think is going to happen for the next week. We'll talk odds. We'll talk about some gambling stuff, who we, want to put some bets on and things. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, we'll talk a little fantasy football, who showed out each particular week. And you know, and then I'll do my picks with David Wednesday nights, you know, on Facebook.
Exactly. Also want to give a shout out. I want to apologize for our title. It does say still Sunday because with the hectic day today that I had over here, I forgot to switch the title. I did switch the title thinking it would switch, but it was already live and it didn't switch. So my apologies. Everything will definitely be changed for next week going forward. So anyways, it's been great to be back. I had a great night tonight. It's always a pleasure, David. Until next time.
My sign says Tuesday night spectacular.
David was right on point.
Good night, bro.
Good night, bud. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining the fourth down and goal broadcast. I'm sorry, I'm out of it right now. Also, if you haven't liked our page and you want to like our page so you can see every time we go live, please like and follow our page. And as soon as we go live, you'll get the notification. Until next time, guys. Later.